Welcome back to the Soul Synergy Network podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Irma Elisheva Diaz, and today we're talking about a kind of grief many people feel, even if they don't realize it has a name. It's called collective grief. This purposely follows our program on burnout. Collective grief is what happens when entire communities, nations, organizations, or groups absorb loss at the same time. It's the grief that moves through societies, neighborhoods, families, and cultures, creating a shared emotional atmosphere that everyone can feel, even if their individual lives look very, very different. Since 2020, we have not only been grieving personal losses, we have been grieving together in a way the modern world was not prepared for. And many people today are still carrying the emotional residue, the heaviness, the fatigue, the anxiety, without realizing that they are not grieving alone. They are grieving in a world that has also been grieving. Today, we're going to explore what collective grief really is, how it affects the mind, the body, and inner life. Why so many people feel emotionally exhausted post-pandemic, and the tools that help communities, families, and individuals that heal. So take a breath and just sit back, because you are entering a conversation that may explain more than you're expecting. What is collective grief? Collective grief is grief experienced not by one person, but by many at the same time. We see collective grief, for example, during pandemics, during war and violence, during natural disasters, mass tragedies, cultural upheavals, economic instability, sudden societal change, in places like hospice companies, first responders that deal with life and death all the time. This kind of grief is not isolated. It spreads. It moves through communities like a wave. It is shared even by those who did not experience the loss firsthand. Since that time of the pandemic, the world has been living inside collective grief. You may hear this years later and will be able to compare it to recent history, I guarantee it. Many lost loved ones, their stability, their predictability of life, their routines, their celebrations. Cultural rhythm was broken. Innocence, trust in the world functioning the way we thought it was going to function. Even people who didn't name it still felt it. We were all navigating a world that suddenly felt unfamiliar, unpredictable, and fragile. Collective grief doesn't ask, who did you lose? It's really asking, what did you lose? And what have you lost together? The question, how does collective grief affect us, is a very, very good question, because collective grief changes the emotional climate of our society. It's like atmospheric pressure, invisible but felt everywhere. It creates shared anxiety. People feel on edge without knowing why they're on edge. The nervous system of entire communities stays activated. It creates emotional fatigue. People say things like, I'm tired all the time, or everything feels heavier, or my patience is wearing thin or thinner. This is not personal failure. It is collective and emotional load. It creates fear about the future. When the world has been unstable, the body seems to stay alert, on guard, long after the immediate crisis has passed. It creates compassion overload. So many stories, many of suffering, loss, and injuries can overwhelm even the most empathetic hearts. And it affects relationships and health. People disconnect more easily. Conflicts escalate faster. Misunderstandings feel sharper. Communities feel fractured. Collective grief affects societies the way personal grief affects one heart. It alters everything, quietly, pervasively, and very deeply. It's unique because unlike personal grief, collective grief has no single story. Not everyone loses the same thing, but everyone loses something. One person mourns a loved one, another mourns the collapse of a business, another mourns a sense of safety, another mourns trust in systems, and another mourns the state of the world. Because the losses differ, people often minimize their own grief. They say other people had it worse. I know I've said that. I shouldn't feel it this way. I should be thankful. My grief doesn't count. But collective grief means everyone's grief counts because everyone is part of the same ecosystem of loss. There's no hierarchy in collective grief. There's only shared impact. Collective grief touches the deepest layers of the inner life. You may notice, for example, emotional sensitivity in yourself or others that you know pretty well, spiritual or existential disorientation, being overwhelmed when watching the news, longing for connection, maybe mistrust in institutions. There's a lot of that. Deeper compassion for suffering, or deep fatigue from witnessing so much pain. Collective grief really does stretch us. It reshapes how we see ourselves, our neighbors, and how we see the future. In many ways, collective grief is a crossroads. Will we become numb or more tender? Will we isolate further or learn to carry one another? Collective grief is not an invitation to fix the world, certainly, but it is an invitation to stay human within it. I want to respectfully offer a few tools for healing collective grief. These are grounded, realistic, soul-centered tools that help restore the emotional immune system of communities, families, even companies. Tool 1, gather in small, safe circles. Collective grief cannot heal through isolation. It heals through witness. This may look like grief circles, support groups, community gatherings, family conversations, storytelling, and creating spaces for it. When people speak honestly in safe company, the burden becomes shared, and that connection becomes medicine. Tool number 2, create community rituals. Rituals help communities organize grief. This can include candle lighting, remembrance walks together, shared meals, vigils, moments of silence, for example, community art, planting trees, public acknowledgments of loss. Rituals don't erase our grief, but they give it a place to land. Tool number 3, reduce emotional isolation. Collective grief grows heavier when people withdraw. Simple invitations matter. How are you really doing? Do you want company? Or just, I'm thinking of you? Connection regulates the nervous system. When the world feels unstable, human presence restores a sense of safety. Tool number 4, limit exposure to collective trauma. You see, the nervous system was not designed to absorb every tragedy in real time. Give yourself permission to step back from constant news. Limit social media exposure. Protect emotional boundaries. Rest your attention. This is not avoidance. It's preservation. Tool number 5, rebuild micro-communities. When large systems feel unreliable, small circles become essential. Healing happens in two friends, for example, checking in weekly, or neighbors looking out for one another, joining support groups or wellness circles. Healing doesn't wait for the world to improve. It happens when people care for people. Tool number 6, practice collective compassion. Collective grief softens when judgment is replaced with gentleness. Try saying, "We're all tired," or "Let's slow down together," or "We're doing the best we can." When that compassion becomes communal, grief becomes more bearable. And here is a word for the listener. If you felt tired, fragile, overwhelmed, or discouraged in recent years, if you've noticed your resilience feels different, if you've wondered what changed inside you, please hear this. It's not just you, it's all of us. You are living in a time of shared loss, loss of certainty, loss of stability, rhythm in life and safety. Your exhaustion is not a character flaw. It is a normal response to an abnormal time. You are doing better than you think. Your inner life is responding honestly to a grieving world. And you are not alone. Not now, not ever. There are ways we can help each other. This grief is prevalent today. It is real, and we can help each other. I want you to keep these things in mind. And I want to thank you for joining me on today's episode of Soul Synergy Network. If this conversation helped you understand yourself, or the world more clearly for that matter, please share it with someone who may be carrying collective grief quietly. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode devoted to emotional clarity, soulful resilience, and healing. If you'd like to connect with me directly, you can email me at soulsynergynetwork@gmail.com. In the meantime, may your community be a source of comfort. May your heart find steadiness, and may you remember the world grieves together and the world also heals together. Until next time, God bless you.